Hi, and good afternoon to our LinkedIn event. This is another in our series of Asset Rich and Exit Ready series, which is on the topic of planning for, preparing for, and actioning an exit from your business or a sale of your business. So today we're just going to talk about where to start. So where you are unsure, where to start with selling or exiting your business. We're going to try and make it a little bit easier for you and hopefully more valuable. So my name is Damien Connolly, and I am the Managing Director and founder of Sakura Business Solutions. And at our core, we are an accountancy practice. So we do a lot of the things you might be familiar with: compliance, outsourced bookkeeping, support, outsourced finance, team solutions. But what I spend more and more of my time on now is working as a fractional CFO for growing SME businesses, typically over £1 million or €1 million turnover, where there's maybe a bit of overwhelm, where there's challenges in terms of systems, processes, maybe there's ad hoc one-off projects that need a bit of finance-led leadership, or just professionalizing the whole finance structure within the business. In addition to that, then, I work with business owners who've typically grown their business to a reasonable size and are now starting to think about exit as an option or a future potential route for their business. And so I help them plan and prepare for that process, where hopefully they'll end up with a life-changing sum or like life-changing outcome from that process, which allows them to retire and gives them the opportunity to either sit on the beach for the rest of their life or dabble in a few other interesting business things as well. So today we're just going to talk around the starting point of a business owner and their journey in terms of thinking about exit or selling their business. We're just going to talk about the starting point, some of the issues that come up. We'll also talk about some of the questions, queries, and some of the typical challenges or problems that they see along the way, as well as talking through what a process looks like for a typical business owner. So what I'd like to start with, first of all, is just some interesting statistics. And these are statistics that come from some formal sources or just statistics that are known within the professional network of people working in this area, etc. So I just want to run through them just to put a bit of a framework behind what we're talking about today. So typically around only 30% of SMEs are ever in a position to sell or exit from their business. It says here 80 to 90%, probably closer to 80% is your standard understanding of businesses that are able to sell. So about 80% of businesses are really never able to sell at all. But more interesting than that is the businesses that do sell successfully, they tend to come from unexpected sources. It comes as a surprise, an unexpected approach from somebody that maybe has been keeping an eye on your business without you being aware of it. So that's probably the key thing: is that when those exits happen, you need to be prepared, because it'll happen quickly, and it'll happen quite unexpectedly. The other thing to bear in mind is that only 2% of SME business owners have any plan at all around this topic of selling or exiting their business. And this is not really a statistic, I don't think, but I think you and I have seen lots and lots of business owners who have quite a successful business, run it for a number of years, and then for one reason or another, probably because they haven't really thought about it carefully enough, or maybe haven't had the right steer or advice, they decide to close down their business and walk away for nothing. So my view is that there's probably a value to every business, and if you think about it, plan for it, put a bit of time and effort into it, you can probably sell it for something. Whereas a lot of business owners, having put all that time and effort in, to walk away with nothing after 10, 15 years of what is quite a successful business, seems a bit of a shame, but it's something that does seem to happen quite often. So again, just to try and put a bit of framework around our topic today, exit planning, that's really what we're talking about: making a start, putting some plans in place to make the process a bit simpler, a bit more clear, and more valuable for you as a business owner. It's exit planning. But, what is that? Is there any value to it? What are we talking about? So I've just picked a few quotes from better business minds than mine, ones that are a little bit more famous typically than me or other people you might meet as part of your normal day-to-day networking. So these are just quotes that I think are really quite relevant, really of interest. Begin with the end in mind. Hope is not a strategy. You want a business that is buyer ready and not owner reliant. Build a business that you can walk away from, but not crawl away from. And don't build a job, build an asset. And finally, every day you don't plan your exit, you reduce your options. And that's something that we'll touch upon a little bit later on as well. So if we start talking about business owners and exit, I think it's quite important to talk about a typical business owner. Typical business owner gets into business, and what they spend their time on and what they're really focused on is trying to grow their business. They're trying to grow their revenues, increase their revenues, increase their profitability, and hopefully improve their own personal wealth over time. And this isn't typically going to happen very quickly. It's probably something that will happen slowly over a number of years of hard work, late nights, weekends, missing family holidays. So really what that means is business owners are busy. They're always busy. They're busy looking for the next opportunity. They're busy trying to grow that revenue, hit that next marker in terms of revenue. They're trying to make the business more profitable. They're trying to make sure that their team stay in place, do the work that they need to do consistently. They're busy. So therefore, it's not surprising that thinking about an exit or what are we going to do in 5 years' time is really high on their agenda, because it's not, because they're busy doing everything else. So just put a few questions out there. If you're a business owner, if you've been running your business for a few years, then I'll just start with a few questions that it might be worth just thinking about. And those are, do you know how long you've been running your own business? Has it been 5 years, 10 years, longer than that? Do you think you'll still be doing this, running your business in the same way in the next 5 or 10 or 20 years' time? Have you ever considered if anyone could or would be interested in buying your business? And the final question I'll just put out there as well is, what if someone did approach you tomorrow, unexpectedly out of the blue, and said, I'm interested in buying your business? How would you react? What would you do next? So again, something else just to bear in mind is that your business is a valuable asset in its own right. It's probably for most people going to be the most valuable asset that they own. And again, because business owners are so busy, budgets like the ones we've had the last couple of years probably don't help with that. But business owners are just so busy that they're probably not thinking about that either. They probably don't really consider how valuable and how key their business is in terms of their own personal wealth as well. So they're not taking steps. They're not really thinking about how they can protect their business, or more importantly, maximize the value of their business and this key business asset. So again, in terms of business owners, an exit is a transaction that'll probably only happen once in their lifetime. For most business owners, it's probably once and once only. So what that means is that for many people, they don't really have the contacts. Maybe they don't know anyone in their circle who's successfully exited their business in the past. Maybe they've got some very good advisors around their business, but maybe those advisors haven't got great experience or great knowledge around selling a business, planning for different exit options, what the steps are, where they need to start. So again, it's not necessarily something that is readily available to all business owners. So for all those reasons, busyness, once in a lifetime, not a very typical transaction for many advisors or for many business owners themselves. It just means that business owners, people like you, probably arrive at the point maybe where it does cross their mind, but they've got questions. They don't know that they can sell their business. Again, you don't know what you don't know. So of course, you're not going to know that you can sell your business. You probably don't know what the process involves. There is a process. It's a long and winding road. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But there's a process which is broadly standard in most sales or most exits, but it can seem very daunting. It can seem very challenging. Maybe if there has been a discussion about it, it's like, oh my God, that seems like too much for me. It isn't my bag. Or in some cases, you just don't think your business is worth enough to be thinking about selling it. Or alternatively, you've got a great view that your business is worth a huge amount of money, and maybe it's not. So if you don't know what your business is worth, that's part of maybe some of the questions you have when the topic crosses your mind. And then finally, you just don't know where to start. Who do you speak to? What do you need to focus on first? How do you know that what you're doing is right? How do you know where you're going in many respects? So all of these are the questions that hopefully we'll address a little bit more as we go through today's event. But these are the typical framework, the background to where business owners are, and then the questions that they have in their mind. So I just want to run briefly through some of these questions, some of these points at that starting point today. So the first thing is the decision to sell. This isn't something, as we mentioned, that's at the forefront of many business owners' mind, but probably at some point it does come onto their radar. It does come onto their mind in terms of, maybe I need to sell my business. Maybe I want to sell my business. Maybe there's an opportunity. So what are those triggers, as I call them, that typically drive a business owner to suddenly start thinking about it when they haven't thought about it for many years? And so they include things like age. You get to a certain age, you've been running the business for a number of years. Maybe you're starting to think about retirement, and suddenly you're thinking, how do I get out of the business? Can I sell it? Illness. It may not be your illness. Maybe you're in great health. Maybe you're going to the gym every day after work. But actually what tends to happen is maybe somebody in your family or someone in your close personal friendship group has gotten ill. And suddenly the question comes, do I really want to do this for another 10 years, another 20 years? Is there more to life? Family. Maybe your spouse is again saying, why can't you join us on this 2-week holiday to Australia? Why can't you take the weekend off and not leave your laptop behind? Maybe this now starts to become a question that you're thinking, why can't I spend this time? Why shouldn't I spend this time? So again, that's a trigger that starts to think about, what do I do in the future? How do I exit the business? Is there some value here that I can pass on to somebody else? Market changes. We're in the age of AI, which apparently is going to change business and how we do business and the type of businesses from the way that we know it today. Now, whether that does happen or not is a different point, but I think the point that I'm making is that this has probably put in mind of some of you business owners or business owners more widely the thought of, is it time for me to make a change? Is it time for me to step away? Is now a good time to sell the business and maximize the value before maybe the market changes and the value drops through the floor? Again, maybe you're at the point of thinking about a new opportunity, something different. Maybe something has landed on your desk that's suddenly become more interested in the business you've been running for a number of years and running quite successfully. But really it's not key to what you want to do anymore. So it's a new opportunity that puts that thought of selling your business in your mind. And then there could be other reasons. Maybe you're just burnt out. Maybe you've just had enough. You want to now really actively start thinking about, how do I sell the business, move on to something else, change what I do on a day-to-day basis? Or it could be you've been working with a business partner for a number of years and maybe they're thinking about retirement. Maybe they're ill. Maybe their family has put some pressure on them. They want to get out of the business, and the option of selling or exiting is now on your mind. Or maybe you've just fallen out, and this is a good way of both of you exiting at the same time. So there's a number of reasons why the decision to sell might suddenly come into your mind and suddenly come onto your radar and be something that's quite important in terms of the future direction of the business. How quickly can I sell or exit? That's the next question that business owners have in their mind once they've decided they want to sell. And this is probably one of the biggest challenges that I see, or that business advisors in this sector have to deal with in terms of business owners. That's the first question: how long does it take? And typically, there's an unknown element to that business owners aren't really aware of. So there's a lot of misconceptions out there as well. But I think business owners typically think, I can sell my business in a few months' time. By the end of the year, I can have it sold. I'll get the money that I want. I'll get out in the way that I want. And that's quite a misconception. And part of that might be down to what I call Tom down the pub, who talks about all the tax dodges he's getting benefit of, about all the things that he's putting through his company successfully without revenue or HMRC chasing him. He'll also probably be telling you about how easy it is to sell a business, how he got top dollar, how it was dead easy as a process. There's a lot of misconceptions out there. There's a lot of false expectations as well. So one of the first things that as an advisor to any business owner is that, how quickly can I sell? It's probably going to take time, is my answer to that. The misconceptions tend to fall into a few boxes. Business owners think they can sell within 3 to 6 months. Yes, you can sell your business in 3 to 6 months, but you'll sell your business as it is now. So if it is not ready to sell, if it's got a few little problems or challenges in it, you will probably be able to sell it, but you'll sell it for the price that someone is willing to pay for it as it is now. Whereas what we really want to do is we want to make sure that the value you sell it for is the right value that pays you back for the weekends, the long nights, the family holidays missed, and you build up the value. All of that takes time. It's not going to be done in 3 or 6 months. Equally, one of the things that you will want to do is you'll want to increase your personal wealth, get as much wealth out of the business on the way through the transaction, but also, through the sale of your business. You want to make sure your personal wealth is increased to allow you to retire comfortably and without any concerns or problems. Again, that is not something that can be done in 3 or 6 months, because if you think about your own business, it may be that you've got a property in the same company as your trading business. It may be you've got cash, a lot of cash in your business. It could be that you've got some investments sitting in your business. So all of those things need to be removed, taken out of the business. And you probably don't want to take them all out in one go and take a huge personal tax hit. So it's about getting the right planning. It's about doing things step by step. Take the money out in a tax efficient way, in a way that builds up your personal growth before you get to the point of exit. And again, that all takes time. It's not a 3 or 6 months exercise. And finally, we've kind of touched on it already, but tax planning. This is probably the biggest financial transaction that you'll be involved in. As I mentioned, it's probably a once in a lifetime transaction. And so you need to make sure that you are properly prepared for it in terms of taking advantage of any tax reliefs, putting in place any sensible tax planning for you personally, and making sure that you're not running into a very big tax bill that's unnecessary and not really required. So again, tax planning might involve lawyers. It'll involve your tax advisor. There may be a number of steps you need to follow. There may be some clearances you need to get from HMRC or from revenue, or there just might be some time frames that you need to stick to in order to avail of some tax relief. So again, how quickly can I sell or exit the business? Not as quickly as you might think. It's not going to be 3 or 6 months unless you rush a sale through, and what you'll probably get is nothing near to what you could get by dealing with these issues appropriately and planning for them ahead of time. Selling your business or following another or an alternative exit option out of your business, I view it as a journey. it's a winding road to a sale or an exit. And the aim then, from my point of view, is that we want to try and make it as easy as we can, given there will be challenges. It is a long process. It will be stressful. So it's about trying to make sure that it's as easy and as pain-free as possible. But also the most important thing from my point of view is to make it as valuable as possible for a business owner, because you want to maximize the value of your business if you possibly can. And you can, absolutely. I was reading an article today about an example of where a business value was increased threefold by planning ahead of time, by taking a few steps. So instead of selling that business in 3 to 6 months, waiting an extra 18 months or 2 years, putting a few steps in place, planning for it appropriately, 3 times the value of that business. So you may or may not get 3 times, you may get more, but again, it's a long and winding road. It's about doing the right things along the way to maximize what you get out of all those years of running your business and get the most from it by doing invariably relatively simple things and being prepared ahead of time. So again, I talk about a well-organized and a properly planned process. It's going to take 18 months. It may take 2 to 3 years, depending on where you are in the business, depending on how professionalized the business is already. And so that's the time frame you need to be thinking about. And why? Why do we need to talk about that time frame? We've touched on a few things around tax planning and bits and pieces like that. But actually, for most businesses, there's a few key areas that almost invariably have to be worked on. And these are the things that drive the real value or increase the value of your business. The tax planning, the various other things are really important things, probably more so for you personally, but the things that will maximize the value in your business and really make it more valuable ahead of an exit or sale process are things like a management team. You need to build a coherent, a professional management team, which means then that you're not responsible and not doing everything in the business. And that's really important because the way I look at it, what you're trying to do with your business, you're trying to sell a box that a buyer can pick up from over here, take up and put over there, and they can continue then doing what they need to do with that box. That's what you're trying to do, is create a box that stands on its own 2 feet, that can be lifted, taken away, and then run in exactly the same way as it was run beforehand. That's what you're aiming to do. So management team is one of those key pillars to make sure that you're not responsible for everything. The business can run on its own. You'll still be a key part of your business, but you won't be responsible for everything. Process and systems. The other pillar alongside your management team will be the processes and systems. So the ways that you find new business, the way that you deal with your pipeline of leads, the way that you turn them into clients, the way that you manage your clients, the way that you invoice your clients, the way that you review and manage your cash. All of these internal processes are going to be really, really key in terms of building the value of your business, because they will just run on a consistent way throughout your business. They can be improved, they can be amended, they can be changed. It's those systems, it's that CRM software, it's that marketing software, it's that finance software, alongside clear processes. That means your team are working consistently. You can see the results of the work that you're delivering, and it means your management team can manage those processes and drive them. Next thing is financials. When you are selling your business, you're going to try and sell it for the maximum amount and get the highest price you possibly can. So what that means then is a buyer wants to be able to validate that the price they're paying for your business is the right price for them, and that there's no surprises, there's no risks, and that they will earn the value from purchasing your business over a period of time, whether that's 3 or 5 or 10 years in the future. But they will want to make sure that that business that they're buying is worth the price they're paying. So what that means is you need to have a set of financials that clearly set out the journey, that clearly support the story that you're selling to that buyer, that clearly show where your revenue, your turnover comes from, what it's generated from, how much your overhead costs are, what's happened over the last number of years, and show clearly what's happened well, what's happened not so well, and how things have changed, why they've changed. Those financials need to be really clear, clean, support the story you're selling, and highlight that there's no problems or no issues that a buyer should be aware of. And probably one of the other areas to look at as well along this journey is the business owner. The number one thing that takes value out of any sale of a business is owner involvement, as the term is. So if you're involved in every aspect of the business, from finding clients, managing client relationships, delivering client work, invoicing clients, etc., 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 then your business is going to be worth an awful lot less than a similar business that's got a management team acting professionally, supported by processes and systems, with financials that show how they make their money, where they, how much their costs of running the business are, what their profitability is, what their budget is for next year, what their cash flow and their working capital is. That is a business that will get significantly more in terms of price than yours, because all those different pillars are in place. And one of those key pillars is the business owner being important, but not key to the running of the business. And it also means that if you're not involved in the day-to-day, the transition period or the earn-out period after the point of sale means that you'll be involved for a shorter period of time to help clients through, to help your management team. You won't have to be in that business for a number of years to get the price that you're looking for. So, where do you start? How do you get started? Well, you're here today and listening to this briefing or talk or session. So that's a really good starter for 10. If exit is on your mind, if selling's on your mind, then this is a good place to start, because it'll give you a few ideas and a few tips. But actually, the best place to start is not to go down to a business broker or an M&A advisor and start a conversation about how do I sell my business. What it is to think about what's your plan. What's your plan personally? What's your plan for your business? And what I tend to do is help clients to put that plan together. And then you've got a plan that you work over the next 18 months, 2 years, to work on the gaps, work on the areas that we touched on earlier on, and then get you to the point where you're ready, you're exit ready for your business. And what that also means is starting to think about now, what are the options? And think about the different options that allow you to exit the business. And then either you can remove them from your list of options, or you can keep them open and work towards them until you get a point where you say, that's the ideal option for me. So your options pretty much are sell your business, sell it to a competitor, a trade competitor, or to private equity or an investor of some sort, or it's support your team to buy the business, manage and buy out. There's also an option of perhaps transitioning the business to family members who are interested in running it. Or you can sell it to an EOT, an employee ownership trust. Now, again, with the budget, that's not quite as tax efficient as it was a week ago. But again, it's another option. So if you are thinking about putting a plan together, you're thinking about what are the options that I could do in terms of selling or exiting from my business, that's a good starting point. So the other thing that I recommend in terms of where do I start is think about your retirement needs first and foremost. Go and speak to your IFA. Speak to your IFA, have a discussion around, if I retired in 3 years' time, 5 years' time, and I spent 6 months a year in Australia, 6 months driving a Ferrari up and down the country, let them work out what your need is in terms of income, pension pot, and that then at least gives you a starting point to say, this is what I need to retire with the amount of money that I'm going to need. The next place to start would be to look at your own business, and either in a broad brush fashion, take a look and get an indication of what your business is actually worth, or you can go down the route of getting a more formal valuation of your business, and then at least you understand what your business is likely to be worth if you sold it today, or if you sold it in the next 3 to 6 months, you would have an idea of what that business is worth. What that means is you now know how much you need to retire, and you also know how much your business is likely to be worth if it was sold in the short term. Now, if that's enough for you to retire, then that's perfectly fine. It may not maximize your income from the sale transaction, but it might just be enough. And that means actually you can sell sooner than you thought. The reality is there's probably a mismatch, or you want to maximize the value out of your business. So the next thing you do is think about how much do you realistically want to sell your business for. So if your retirement pot is £1 million, if you think your business is worth £500,000 and you think actually I'd like to get to £2 million, then that's your target for 3 years' time to get your business to a valuation of £2 million. You've now got, the framework of a plan available to you. And then the next thing that I would do is I'd start putting the plan together. What do I need to do? We've touched on some of those topics already, and those issues in the earlier part of the session. What do I need to do to take my business from a valuation of £1 million to £2 million, or from £5 million to £10 million in 3 years' time? What are the things I need to work on? What do I need to work on first? What do I need to work on second? When do I start having conversations with an M&A advisor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So in terms of how to start, that would be what my recommendation is. Work out what you need for your retirement, get an indication of what your business is worth now, consider your options in terms of what you might find as a suitable exit or a sale of your business, and then work out what your target is for your business value, and then put a plan in place. Okay, so we've gone through quite a lot of detail there. What I might do now is just talk you through very briefly. Bear with me. There we go. What I might do now is just show you very briefly what a typical exit process looks like. Oh. Okay. So this is what a typical sale or exit process looks like in very broad terms, but just to give you the key steps and the key milestones along the way. So it's about deciding that you potentially want to sell or exit from your business in 6 months' time if you're really keen, or in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years' time. The next thing then is deciding what your target is for the sale point, and putting your plan together in terms of getting you from A to B. And I would then go back and talk about, well, that plan is preparing yourself personally, but preparing the business as well. So knowing what your target is, knowing what your business is worth, speaking to your IFA about your retirement requirements, looking at tax planning, and then working on the business with your management team, your systems, processes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all the preparation phase, which is probably the largest phase, to be honest. And then the next one is then taking a breath when the business is getting towards exit ready. Then it's about thinking more strategically about who do I need to be looking for in terms of buyers? What are the additional things I need to do to make my business more attractive? A little bit more strategic decisions or steps taken at that point. The next step then is getting your M&A advisor, your business broker involved at that point, and then having a conversation, narrowing down your options in terms of whether you want to sell to private equity, to investment house, to a third party, whether you want to involve your management team in a buyout, and then find a number of potential buyers, the right buyers for you. And again, it might be you're more interested in legacy, keeping your team together, keeping your brand going, more than getting top dollar for your business, or it could be you're just interested in selling the business for the maximum amount. Legacy and those other issues aren't of value to you. But again, it's about find the right buyers, have those discussions, plan accordingly, know what you need to do to attract those potential buyers. And then once you get a buyer in front of you, it's about negotiating the broad outline of what a sale looks like. Typically, it's your heads of terms. And that then gives you the framework of what the sale looks like, what the next steps are, who's going to do what when, how much of a period you're going to spend negotiating with this particular buyer. And then we move on to what I would probably call the most important process, the due diligence process. And basically what that is someone like myself will come in, an accountant, maybe a lawyer, will come in and start raking over your business, raking over your financials, looking at everything to do with the operation of your business in order to protect the buyer's interests, make sure that what they're buying fits to what you've told them, and also to make sure that all the financials stack up, that the legals are all in place, there's no hidden disputes, there's nothing that might be a risk or potential problem the day after they buy your business. So this is a really important process. If it goes well, the terms that you've negotiated and the price that you've negotiated probably comes out fairly intact. If it goes not so well, where there's lots of problems they find, if maybe some of the figures or some of the story around the growth of the business don't quite stack up in the due diligence process, then that's maybe where you find that your price starts being reduced, chunks get taken out of it. Maybe there's also some warranties where you're asked to personally resolve issues that happen after the day of purchase. All of this is then discussed and adjusts from the original broad outline of the sale. So the negotiation gets a bit tougher for you. But anyway, assuming the due diligence goes well, or at least the sale is continuing, then you finalize the sale with the buyer. And then once they have agreed to buy the business, there will be a transition period, or typically it might be called an earn-out period. Again, it goes back to the start of what we talked about today, is if you are less involved in the business, the transition period or the earn-out period for you will probably be limited. It's about keeping key clients on board, keeping your management on track, just making sure that nothing falls over a period of time. If you're very involved in the business, then your transition period will be a number of years, because it'll take that period of time to get you out of the business after the sale. Whereas if you plan, follow the roadmap that we've discussed already, you'll be doing that before you get to the sale process. So that's pretty much the process. It can vary from business to business, from transaction to transaction. Broadly, that's how it works. You decide to sell, you put your preparation in place, you probably take some steps ahead of a sale to be quite strategic about things that you're going to do in the business. Maybe cut some costs, maybe bring in someone to supercharge your sales for a period of time. Strategic things to help improve the business ahead of the sale process. Find your right buyers, negotiate the initial terms, go through the due diligence process, and try and make sure that nothing comes out of that that's very significant. And that's where the planning makes sure that you've got everything in place, any problems are dealt with beforehand, so it doesn't impact the negotiated price materially. And then obviously what you're trying to do is you may be able to leave immediately upon the sale. You'll probably have to stick around for a period of time. What you want to be able to do is keep that to a minimum and make it as little of a job as possible after you've sold your business. So one thing I just want to leave you with as well before we finish is just selling a business is quite emotional. It's quite stressful. There's a lot of there's quite a lot of stress. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of concern. There's a lot of worry along the way. So planning is a good thing to help with dealing with some of that. But even with the best will in the world, there'll be a number of fears that business owners will have as they embark on this journey, as they start the process of selling their business. So these are the typical ones. So I just want to leave you with some of the typical fears or concerns that business owners will have. And if you start that journey, you will probably have these as well. But it goes back to the more that you plan and prepare, the more that these fears are limited, mitigated. Maybe you're able to deal with them more quickly, more easily through having that planning in place. So just very quickly, the fears that business owners have typically are leaving money on the table. I've sold my business. Oh, maybe I could have gotten a lot more if only I'd done this and this and this. If you plan, if you work on filling in the gaps, you will get as much as you can, the right amount of money for your business, and you'll leave little or nothing on the table. Fear of their personal financial security. Well, again, if you're planning correctly, if you're making sure you're looking after the tax efficiency of how you manage taking money out of the business ahead of your sale process, if you're getting the maximum amount at the point of selling your business, then there shouldn't be too much fear of personal financial security, because it will be hopefully a life-changing sum of money that will see you well into your retirement. Fear of navigating the sale process. Well, again, we've run through the process. If you know what's coming down the line, if you know that there's a due diligence process coming up, then you can prepare for it, which means that it's not as fearful of the due diligence. You know what you have got. Maybe the areas that they'll look into in more detail. You'll have an answer for it, so that takes away some of that fear as well. Fear of the tax liability on an exit. Again, if we've done the work, we've done the tax planning, there shouldn't be too much fear, because you'll know how much tax is likely to be due. You'll either have planned for it, or you'll have prepared to be able to pay that at the right time or in the right stages. So again, that fear should be somewhat minimized. Fear over finding the right buyer. Again, if you have reviewed your options, considered what's the right option for you, if you've done the preparation work, if we've got the right people in front of you in terms of M&A advisors or business brokers, it shouldn't be a huge issue to find the right buyer and make sure you're speaking to the right interested buyers. And finally, fear of life after the sale, fear of loss of identity. All of those things are real. If you go to any podcast, one podcast I've been on is the Bulletproof Entrepreneur. There's a number of podcasts, episodes talking about business owners who've sold their business and had a real challenge after they sold their business. So again, it's real. It does happen. But again, if we put the time and effort into planning, we can put things like a coach in place with you 12 or 18 months before the sale process, so they can make sure that you are emotionally ready. Maybe you find some hobbies, maybe you find something of interest that will keep you busy and actually minimize that sort of life, that loss, or that life after the sale challenge. It's going to be there. You're probably going to have it anyway, but if we can do the right things, prepare properly, we can probably minimize that fear as well. So all of these things are fears and concerns that every business owner typically has along the way. Some of them are real, some of them we can manage, some of them we can put to bed very quickly by just planning appropriately ahead of the sales transaction. So a relatively brief session, and we talked really about the starting point more than anything else. But I think what we really want to do is get you as a business owner exit ready, make sure that the process is as smooth as it can be, given that it's never entirely smooth. There's always things that can happen at the last minute, but at least if we can do our best to get you exit ready, we're putting you in the best position possible to get the maximum from your business and from the hard years, the hard work, the weekends, the late nights, from getting your business up to a certain point. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments below, or I've got my LinkedIn details there. So by all means, give me a DM if you've got any particular questions. We can arrange a call if necessary. And yeah, I don't see any questions in the comments as of yet. But if you put them in the comments, then I'll answer them even after this, even when we're finishing the meeting. I'm happy to answer them. Or as I said, you can contact me through DM and I'll be happy to respond to any questions then. We will have a couple of other events coming up. I don't think they're in the diary yet, but we'll put them in before Christmas. So again, probably a couple of areas with a little more of a deep dive around some elements of what we've talked about today. So if you want to be invited to those, again, drop me a line. We'll put you on the invite list, or just keep an eye out on my LinkedIn page. And when they are announced, they'll come out on my page, and then you can register to be an attendee for future events. In terms of after today, we will send out a DM after the event with a copy of the recording. So if you have missed this event or you'd like to catch up with it again on a different day, then you'll have that available for you. And otherwise, we have some guides and we have some videos, short videos and slightly longer videos on the topic of exit, or also on the topic of fractional CFO. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you will see those details there. Or if you go to our website, you can download some of our guides on exit planning, aspects of some of the planning that needs to be done from business owners, or just go to our YouTube channel and you can find a lot of information, FAQs, how-tos, etc. on sale or exit planning, or also on fractional CFO as well. Okay, hopefully that was helpful and interesting. It was all about the starting point and the how to get started rather than anything in great detail. We'll do some of those in future events. So thank you very much, and have a great day.